kill you. Many experts think a lot of these folks that have been in the plant will die within a few months.
Are you worried about the economy? Have you ever wondered if the politicians and the bankers are going to bring the whole thing crashing down? If so, pay close attention. Because in an economic meltdown, non-hybrid seeds could become more valuable than even silver and gold. After all, securing a source of food for your family is the single most important thing you can do. Introducing the Survival Seed Bank, the perfect mix of germination-tested non-hybrid seeds. You get enough seeds to plant a full-acre crisis garden that can produce an endless supply of nutrient-dense food for you and your family. And the best part is that these seeds have not been genetically modified in any way. So visit them today at survivalseedbank.com or give them a call at 877-327-0365. Remember, in a real economic crisis, non-hybrid seeds are the ultimate barter item. Prepare your family today by calling or going to survivalseedbank.com now.
Thank you for joining us on this Sunday edition. We're here every Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m., all-time Central, back Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., again, all-time Central Standard Time. Here's the toll-free number to join us today. Obviously, I want to get into the economy, what's happening in Libya right now, and it's now admitted that the West basically stirred this up. I'm no fan of Muammar Gaddafi, but now it's all over the news, New York Times, London Telegraph, Fox News. Why are we helping al-Qaeda? Because it is al-Qaeda out of Saudi Arabia on record that is inside the east of Libya running these attacks, and they're now taking more cities from Muammar Gaddafi, who in the last 6 years signed peace deals with the U.S., with Europe, with England, and has been caught, you know, in public events hugging Obama, hugging Nicolas Sarkozy of France, hanging out with Merkel, hanging out with the Italian president, hanging out with the last two British prime ministers who sold him these weapons. The point is, he made a deal with them, and you see how he gets treated for that. And they lied about him running to Venezuela. They lied about him strafing crowds. The point is, they've lied about all this. And so some people are cheering this and very excited about it, but it sets a precedent where if the West, and that is the big corporate powers that run our countries, that are looting our pension funds and bankrupting our country and devaluing our dollar, this is not in our interest to have these globalists running our countries. But we go into other countries for their interest, trillions in oil. There's more than $2 trillion discovered, ready to pump, over $2 trillion of oil conservatively in Libya. And that's a big part of it, but it's also part of a larger destabilization campaign that we warned you about years ago. And so we've been manipulated into this situation. Obama didn't ask the Congress for approval, even though that's the law. It is an impeachable offense, as Ron Paul and others have rightly said. I mean, I was no fan of what George Bush did with those illegal wars, but he at least went to Congress and got a resolution for force. Obama didn't even consult back 2 weeks ago. He didn't even consult when they had that UN resolution, and within less than 48 hours, within a day and a half, the bombardment began. So the UN says do it, and Obama says, you said jump, how high? And that's basically what happened, and now he's briefing Congress. Well, George Bush put an executive order on the books. Obama reauthorized it, one of his first acts when he got into power 2 years ago, to allow the suspension of Congress and the entire suspension of government for any emergency, including economic or any other designated by the president, and for 6 months the Congress has no authority. Now, that is tyranny. That's what a tyrant does. And it was widely covered. And it's still ongoing. And so, just like a year and a half ago when he became the first sitting U.S. president to be the head of the UN Security Council, violating Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. See, I said I would get into Libya later. I'm already doing it. But I've got a big stack of reports here I want to go over. And I want to get your take on the Fukushima reports confirming 10,000 times safe levels, up from 1,600 times safe levels. I don't know if it's true of 10 million times. I don't think that's possible. I did some looking. That's what a neutron star basically puts out. And I mean, if it was putting out that, we'd all be dead. I mean, it's not true. I don't believe it. But confirmed 10,000 times safe levels, up from 1,600 on Wednesday, 10,000 times on Friday, and then Saturday they said 10 million times. But the point is, we know there's been a cover-up. We know the radiation has reached Europe, blowing over the entire Pacific, over North America, and coming to the United States. Also, they're now reporting that the MOX plutonium-based reactor that blew up spectacularly 3 days into the disaster 2 weeks ago, or right at 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago tomorrow, that blew up on Monday morning with that big black mushroom cloud spraying spent fuel rods everywhere that were stored on top of the building. We know that now that they admit, damaged the reactor seal with the really nasty live plutonium and uranium, and that is leaking out, and it is melting down. And 3 of the other reactors, so that's a total of 4, have melted down or partially melted down and are smoking, and it's getting worse and worse, and the Japanese are all over the news admitting total meltdown could occur at 1 or more reactors. And they keep having to pull the emergency personnel back because the radiation is so high, it's a suicide mission. And so this thing is far from over. In fact, it's deteriorating very, very quickly, and the cover-up has imploded, now going back 9 days ago, when the head of the plant broke down crying and said, "We covered up. This is going to kill people." But the average American cares about the NCAA, I guess, and that's why the globalists think that they're allowed to get away with this. But I want to open the phones up with a smattering of key news throughout the rest of the broadcast in the hour and 35 minutes we've got left here. The toll-free number to join us is 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-2539. And you know what? I'm doing something today different. First-time callers only. If you're calling from anywhere in the world but Japan. First-time callers only, unless you're calling from Japan, or if you're calling from Libya, or if you're calling from Egypt. And you've called before, you're welcome to try to get in. 877-789-2539. Just put in your country code. You should be able. Actually, they can't usually get in unless they're calling on Skype on the toll-free number. Will you guys later give me the toll line so folks are able to get in from overseas, or is it one of those on the screen there? So that number, okay, your country code, and then dial 512-646-1776. That's for folks in the Middle East, North Africa, or from Japan. Radiation's also hit China. I forgot to mention that. The wind's not even blowing that way, but they've got higher levels of radiation hitting them there. 512-646-1776. If you're calling from outside the country, again, 512-646-1776 with your country code or our country code in front of it, or 877-789-2539. First-time callers only, though, today, unless you're calling from Japan or the Middle East. Yeah, there's a headline right there out of China. Radiation spreads as crisis likely to continue for a long time. That's out of Tokyo, being reported on in China. Low levels of radioactive material, iodine-131, were detected Saturday in the Heilongjiang province north of Beijing. China's National Nuclear Emergency Coordination Committee said the radioactive material was likely to have come from the tsunami-damaged Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan. Really, you think so? And, of course, we never hear anything about what happened 2 weeks ago. Just a couple days into the Fukushima situation, a big plant up in Canada bordering one of the big Great Lakes released a bunch of radioactive isotopes into the lake, but said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. You know, radiation's good for you. The reason I said Egyptians are welcome to call in, I had the Financial Times of London and Associated Press here. And they report Egyptian government bans protest. Oh, the people that run our country and can care less about our free market or the average American's interests, but wrap all their police-state wars in the flag, they told us they were overthrowing their formerly backed dictator, Hosni Mubarak, because, by the way, he was against attacking Iran or Libya, had to get that duck lined up bordering Libya. Now they've banned all protests, and it's confirmed they are beating and raping the women and killing the men. Will there be an invasion of our little ally with the new puppets of Egypt? Don't hold your breath. We'll be back with your calls and a lot more. Very interesting has happened. And again, I heard Hillary Clinton via XM today on ABC News saying this is a big step for globalism. I've seen Herman van Rompuy, the head of the EU, who met many times with Muammar Gaddafi in the last year, praising the fact that the UN ordered this new kinetic military action, not allowed to call it a war, very Orwellian term, and that this shows how the nation state is basically dead. That the UN gives the order, and the individual countries are not consulted. Their militaries are now bound to the UN and NATO, and the war starts, and the U.S. Congress was not even consulted. And they're now admitting what I pointed out a week and a half ago when all this started. I said, this is a big deal. At least George Bush went and got a sign-off from Congress for military force. Now, they were supposed to get a full declaration of war. It's still unconstitutional and an impeachable offense, but at least there was some ceremonial involvement of Congress. And now there was no involvement of Congress, and so Obama is set to address the nation very, very soon. In fact, I was seeing the report earlier. I think it's tonight. Will you guys pull that up? Just search Obama to address nation on Libya. I think it's tonight, but the point is, I just heard it in passing, driving in on 5:90 a.m. I was listening to the news. I meant to check that when I got into the studio. But the point is that all of this is happening. And they know people are getting upset about this on the left and the right in that controlled paradigm. So we need to discuss that further. And I'm going to go to your phone calls here in a moment. But big things are happening. And our own media is not really reporting on this. Sure, it's in the Associated Press. Sure, it's in the Financial Times of London. But it's just on the back burner. Egyptian government bans protest. That's the Financial Times of London headline. And they go on to report that the women are being raped by the Western-backed new government that are such little Democrats and such little humanitarians. All they did was remove one thug, Hosni Mubarak, who was the big U.S. ally, and both candidates of the two parties that are set, either one, they're neck and neck to win in elections, though those have been canceled for a while, are al-Baradi, the former head of the Atomic Energy Agency, UN globalist puppet, and a Muslim Brotherhood candidate with connections to al-Qaeda. And, of course, al-Qaeda is on record. Even Glenn Beck has a headline that inadvertently the U.S. is backing al-Qaeda in Libya. No, there's nothing inadvertent about it. In fact, let me find the actual headline on that instead of just paraphrasing it. It's an accident that al-Qaeda is involved. Oh, really? Well, I've got the Fox News headline from last October. Anwar al-Awlaki, number 3 in al-Qaeda, dines secretly at the Pentagon with the Secretary of the Army and the top brass, and then runs every major terror attack in Western Europe and the U.S., including the Fort Hood shooting, the Christmas Day underwear bombing, the shoe bomber, the Times Square bomber, and the 7/7 bombings. Of course, U.S. agent. But when I say U.S. agent, I mean the criminal groups that have taken over our country. The globalists, the big corporations that are sucking America dry, ran the attacks on the Serbs in the 90s, ran the attacks in the 80s on the Russians. They use them to stage terror attacks. Many times the low-level terrorist doesn't even know they're being funded by the military-industrial complex. But the military-industrial complex needs that to have TSA now at checkpoint sticking their hands down your pants. They need the pretext to warrantlessly listen to your phones and read your email, to take over society, to get hundreds of billions a year in no-bid domestic anti-terror contracts. This is how the military-industrial complex is taking the once-free republic over. And countries all over the world are using anti-terror systems to crack down on their populations. In China, in Western Europe, in Russia, every government loves tyranny. And there's the Fox News headline, Beck, U.S. unwittingly aiding al-Qaeda in Libya. Oh, really? When this all started 4.5 weeks ago, I pointed out from just mainline reportage that it was al-Qaeda who's repeatedly tried to overthrow and assassinate Muammar Gaddafi because he's secular. And he came out and started saying, al-Qaeda is attacking me. Al-Qaeda works for America. Well, it doesn't really work for America. It works for these big mega corporations that are bigger than most governments that are not free market. But here's the headline, Financial Times of London, Egyptian government bans protest. Will there be an invasion for libertarian reasons? The Egyptian authorities have moved to ban demonstrations, saying that participants would be detained. Oh, isn't detained right out of 1984?